Hey, it's Storyworthy. Today on the show, writer and producer Todd Hughes talks about his first autograph and not getting it.
We find a piece of paper, we found a pen, and Bill's trumpet case. So we're like, win ugly, right? We're going to go up to her with a pen, a piece of paper, and a hard surface. Finally, after an hour, the door opens, and she's like, shoo, and I run up to her, and so polite, and I go, Miss Bacall, may I please have your autograph? And she spins around and just looks at me with this venom and this rage, and she goes, get lost!
Today on the show, director, writer, and producer Todd Hughes talks about asking for his first autograph and not getting it. Stay close.
Hey, it's Todd Hughes, and you're listening to Storyworthy, and it is.
Welcome to Storyworthy. My name is Christine Blackburn, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Whether you're a longtime fan of the show of over 12 years or a new listener, welcome to Storyworthy. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed the show last week with Maya DiGiorgio. Maya is a fantastic comedian, and her story was about her struggles in comedy, specifically the New York scene. Think Colin Quinn, Jeff Ross, all those guys. And Maya's story, it's at the end of the day, it's inspirational because she got through it. But, you know, there is still a lot of backlash against women who are comedians, which I find so funny to even have to say woman comedian. Can't we just say comedian? Like, who cares who's making who laugh? Anyway, so I want you to go back and listen to Maya, but not today, because today I'm here with a really interesting person. He's a screenwriter and a producer and a writer, and his name is Todd Hughes. Hi, Todd.
Hi, Christine. I'm so happy to be on your show.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. And I know that recently you moved to Mexico.
I'm talking to you from Mérida, Mexico on the Yucatan Peninsula.
And how did you make this decision to move to Mexico?
A lot of things, wanderlust, adventure. I think we were just feeling, being in the United States, we've always threatened when, things are seeming difficult. We've been fighting our whole lives, it seems like. And then when the other side is just, we just took a trip across country, and I just can't believe the things we saw. I can't believe the slogan for 2024 for the Orange one, which is F your feelings. That kind of stuff just... And so moving here, first of all, you get a lot more bang for your buck. The city is ancient. I mean, the city dates back to Jesus' times. This is where the Mayans had a city called To, and those wonderful Spanish conquistadors came here in the 1500s and, put them out of business, made them disassemble their temples and build a Catholic church, which still stands down the street. So, but being in this city where around the corner is a church from the 18th century, our house was built, they don't know how old it is really, but it was redone in 1916 and then 2005. And then, 10 minutes away, we've got Costco in the mall, air-conditioned mall with an ice skating rink. So it's really like living in a whole bunch of different centuries, and it really changes your perspective and makes you so grateful. And so, I don't know, people here are very different. And, you know what it's like in LA. It just, sometimes you just go, what am I doing here? The city is getting bigger and bigger, and there's no infrastructure for it. During the pandemic, we were in Palm Springs, and people were fleeing LA saying it was so uptight, so tense. And, it's just, being my age, I just turned 59, and I thought, I've got a few more big moves in me and my husband. So, let's try this for a while and see what happens. And the wonderful thing is, I'm talking to you in LA. I had a meeting with Randy Jones of the Village People yesterday in Tampa. You can do everything now.
Todd, It is such a cultural shift. There's so much going on right now.
Yeah.
People moving. But I will tell you that I just heard recently, I think it was like on a Fresh Air or something, about so many Americans moving to Mexico that, of course, once again, they're pricing out the locals. And so, tell me about that. I mean, do you know a lot of expats down there?
I do. And I also know a lot of Mexicans. Or I'm not going to say Mexicans, I'm going to say Yucatecans.
Is that what it is, Yucatecans?
Because it's a very different part of Mexico. You know, we've always related to Tijuana, Ensenada, Rosarito, and this is southern Mexico, which is very different. And the current president of Mexico is from here. And it's given the country a very different sense of, you know, this region is known for its tolerance, its accepting of everything, which is so funny because also this is where the asteroid hit the Earth 66 million years ago.
That
took us out of the previous ice age and into our current.
All right, Todd. Now you're just bragging. Whatever, man. Sure.
But
no, so,
I believe you. But you have a good point there because sometimes you're just so shocked at how cheap things are and you don't feel right, and you give them more money and they don't understand it. It makes them embarrassed. So, you know, and we're definitely, part of it is the city is 480 years old. So some of the buildings around here haven't been touched for over 100 years, and trees are growing through them, and you see the ancient stones. So it's an urban renewal, which is very exciting. It's an old city, so a lot of it is in ruins. And so, you know, of course, the economy loves for us to be here because we bring in a lot of money in and we hire a lot of people. And, but at the same time, yes, I've already heard from locals, you know, we're making it a desirable place to live. And, you know, when I go for a dog walk, you don't know what's behind every door. You have no idea. You get a peek in and you see a paradise like where I live. And then you get a peek in and you see 12 people in hammocks, you know, with a TV. And it's very humbling.
It's interesting. It's interesting. Have you been to Mexico City?
Yes. Which is like Paris. You know, that's just
right,
like...
They say everything. They say Mexico City is one of the greatest cities in the world.
Absolutely. And it's just stunning and beautiful. And nothing like the horror stories we were told. You know, like, be careful, and the air quality is awful. It's just stunning, and it's modern, it's ancient. But, you know, this is a very different part of Mexico. And believe it or not, this is the second safest city, big city, million people in North America.
Wow.
So people are like, aren't you afraid of the crime in Mexico? It's like, aren't you afraid of your kids going to school in America? You know, I've heard...
Isn't that the truth?
Right? And since we've been here, it's like, oh my God, you don't even have to lock your door. And this is a big city.
Oh.
And it's extraordinary.
Well, I'm very, very happy for you. I really am.
Thank you.
And one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, not just about your topic, which is my first autograph, which I'm assuming is about getting an autograph or trying to get an autograph, but then not getting it. So I'm anxious to hear that story. But I'm also fascinated with you because you do seem to get into other people's lives, like, you know, biographies. For instance, you're kind of known for the House of Cardin, which was about the designer Pierre Cardin.
Yes. And that, you know, by that point, both my husband and I did narrative film. And we did independent films, and we worked on TV. We worked for American telenovelas. I don't know if you remember when Channel 13 became My Network TV. And we worked on these silly shows. One was called Wicked, Wicked Games with Tatum O'Neal. It was on every night of the week. But, you know, Hollywood is just so difficult. And we were just very lucky that we had a neighbor in Silver Lake named Patty Schemmel, who was in a band called Hole. And at the time, I was into Bananarama and Madonna and Janet Jackson, and I wasn't a grunge kid. I'm a little 10 years too old. But Patty had all these tapes, and she said, can you help me digitize these Super 8 tapes? And so we're helping her, and we're like, well, Patty, these are like Kurt and Courtney's home movies. And she's like, yeah, I lived with them. And we're like, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
Hole, the band, Patty was really good friends with Courtney Love, but hadn't spoken to Melissa or Eric Erlandson in 13 years. The band had been estranged. They broke up. It's a long story. But anyway.
No, I know part of the story because Patty took a real turn as a drug addict and even became homeless, I believe.
Have you seen our film? It's called Hit So Hard.
No, I know, I'm looking at it right. I haven't seen it. It's a documentary called Hit So Hard.
She entrusted us. We said, what do you want to do with these tapes? She said, well, would you guys do a documentary about me? And we said, sure. We didn't know the story, but the deeper we got into it, it was really great because we learned the story firsthand from the mouths of the people, you know.
Who were there.
And Patty revealed more and more of the story as other people spoke. And we said, this is extraordinary because we've just met, you know, also we used it as an excuse to meet every female drummer we could.
Yeah.
So, you know, in our house we had Gina Schock, Debbie Peterson, met Alice DeBeer from Fanny, the first all-girl band in America. And, you know, and then as the fates would have it, our agent calls and says, well, this is the gayest phone call I'm ever going to make. Cher wants to talk to you. Oh. And Cher's manager, Risa Shapiro, had seen Hit So Hard and showed it to Cher. And she's like, man, if they could make a movie about Patty and that, you know, that crazy bitch doesn't take over the film, Courtney, she said, I want them to do a documentary about my mother that's not about me. So we worked with Cher and her wonderful family, her sister Georgianne and her mother Georgia Holt, who just sent me a birthday card or a birthday greeting, and she's 98 years old.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
And then you just realize, like, wow, my story will set it up that I was so afraid to approach famous people because of my first experience with a very famous person. And, but really, you know, people are people. And if you appreciate them and like them, and then we were just fans of Pierre Cardin. We didn't even know he was a real person. We thought it was like Betty Crocker, like just this ancient brand. And we were in Paris and something took us to a museum and we'd been collecting his furniture. We bought his AMC Javelin. He was the first designer to partner with a car company. And we found out he was a real person. Yeah. 1972 AMC Javelin. It was the first.
Is that car in Mexico now?
No. We don't have a car here.
I was going to say.
We sold our Javelin to a guy who really appreciates it. It's in Palm Springs. It will be on the cover of a book soon. But
neat.
After Pierre died, we somehow came in possession of the Pierre Cardin Cadillac from 1981, the Eldorado Evolution, which is a very rare car. So we think he sent it to us as a bonus. And we kept that in Palm Springs in an air-conditioned garage. So it's there for us down the line somewhere.
Yeah, wow.
But we just met Pierre Cardin, and you know, we didn't even ask him anything. He just said yes.
Todd,
so
this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
What a stroke of luck.
Yeah, but you realize, like, you know, if you really love something, you can achieve it. You can get it. And Pierre taught us that over and over, because he was 95 when we met him, and he's like, oh, you're so young. You can learn a new language tomorrow. You can start playing an instrument. You can do anything. And our productivity has gone up exponentially, just waking up every day like he did, saying, I've got to do something. I've got to create. I've got to realize this idea. And so he was
It was what? Just tell me. It's okay. I know. It's very moving when you meet somebody like that who's influenced your life so much.
He was a game changer. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that.
And then, you know, it just keeps happening. So you just go with it.
It's extraordinary, Todd. And when these people put you in charge with their biography or their life, they're in good hands. I know this because you've also done a film about Jane Mansfield and her life and the rumors swirling around her untimely death.
Yes.
And then you got into Cher's mother, like you said, Georgia Holt. You got into Patty Schemmel and Hit So Hard.
And then we had good luck when we were making Hit So Hard. my best friend Tim Kirk was working with Rodney Asher on a film called Room 237.
Right. And Room 237 is that movie that's based on, no, it's not a movie, it's a documentary people who believe, like truly believe in their hearts that hotel room in The Shining, Room 237, is truly a real place and is haunted. Yes?
Well, it's about all the conspiracy theories relating to Stanley Kubrick and that film, The Shining. There are a bunch of them.
Yes.
And Room 237, I think, because that's the pivotal room in the book, in the movie. And almost every conspiracy theory relates to it somehow. But, what luck that Rodney and Tim just made that film for nothing. And we'd just done a documentary and we knew all the legal ropes. So we all went to Sundance and it was a sensation. So David Ebersole, my husband, and I came on board as executive producers and worked with Michael Donaldson for kind of a landmark film about fair using things, because that film, if you had licensed the clips, because it's all clips, would cost, millions of dollars.
Right.
So, and it was a great opportunity for me to work with Tim, because I've been making films with him since we were 12 years old.
Oh my gosh, you grew up together.
Yeah, and then we were at the Cannes Film Festival together, and at Sundance together, walking the red carpet and I
had no idea. That's really great.
Yeah.
Where did you and Tim grow up?
Claremont, California.
Wow. I guess I just didn't know that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, we met in the Boy Scouts. And I said, I make movies. And he said, I make movies. And actually, it's a long street in Claremont called Mountain Avenue. But he lived way down at the bottom, and I lived way up at the top. And we would ride our bikes to each other's house and look at each other's movies, and then we started making movies together.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
That is so fun. I'm telling you, I have a child, and they are in film school in 10th grade. And I know that they're already meeting people that they'll collaborate with for the rest of their lives. I know.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. My mother's
it
like,
really is.
I can't believe you still have the same friends. It's like, what's so hard to believe about that?
Yeah, I have a great friend from high school as well. Yeah. And so let me just ask you one more thing. Oh, you also did another documentary called My Name is Lopez.
That's our latest
which was
one.
about undocumented Mexican immigrants. And also about a guy named Trinidad Lopez III, who was one of the first Latino rock stars. What brought you to that documentary?
Well, living in Palm Springs, actually, leaving Hollywood and moving to Palm Springs, we found a lot of much more sincere people, and things really started happening for us film-wise, because you meet, and a lot of old-timers. So Trini Lopez, I grew up with him. His album Live at PJ's I've had since I was born. He actually peaked on the Billboard charts the day I was born. How's that? And Jane Mansfield was #1 at the box office the day I was born.
Oh my!
And I didn't know that before we ended
funny.
up doing these projects. But
wait, what month? And
August 13th.
And date? You don't tell me. August
so I just had my
You just had a
59th birthday.
Happy birthday. Yeah.
But so we were at a party in Palm Springs and sitting there with the mayor and Trini Lopez and our host Gary Gand, Joan and Gary Gand, just said, hey, would you guys do a documentary about Trini Lopez if we paid for it? And we were like, no one ever gives us that kind of offer. And Trini was just amazing. And it's fun being in Mexico now because his parents were undocumented immigrants who came to Dallas, had Trini in the 30s, and he ended up becoming an American icon. He was in the Rat Pack with Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. And extraordinary man, and he was the first artist. He had a friend named Richard Valenzuela who had a hit with La Bamba, but he had to change his name to Richie Valens. And so when Trini got his contract, they said, you have to change your name. And he said, I get it, Trinidad is a weird name. And they said, that's fine, Lopez has to go. And he said, no, I won't do that. And then we have Tony Orlando in our film saying he was the one who let a Latino name be a headliner. You could go to Vegas and see, Lopez or Rodriguez or And in the film, we reveal, like, Freddie Fender, I don't remember what his name is, but America is pretty awful, right, trying to make everyone white. So,
Well, look at Ellis Island. They did that to everybody that
exactly.
came through. They cut off the end of the names.
Raquel Welch was
Every person.
Raquel Tejada.
Sure.
Vicky Carr has an endless Spanish name. But also,
Sure.
you know, Bob Zimmerman, Bob Dylan, Leslie
Dylan.
Goldstein, Leslie Gore, right? Just get rid of that ethnic stuff.
I'm trying to think of the Charles Bronson story. Charles
Oh,
Bronson
right.
was
He's like
outside.
Wachowski. He's got like some long
Yeah.
Polish name. Yeah.
Charles Bronson was standing outside the Paramount gates, waiting to get in to audition for something, and he started thinking that his last name might be a deterrent because it was so ethnic.
Right.
So he just looks at the street sign and it says Bronson, and he says, "That'll
Oh,
be Charles Bronson."
I didn't know that story.
I used to be a page on the Paramount lot.
Really?
Isn't that interesting?
I have a movie I have to show you that I made.
Oh.
I was just reading that Martin Sheen is really regretting changing his name from Estevez, but where would his career be? If he was Estevez, he would have only played villains and bad guys. He couldn't play presidents. And Martin Sheen, the Mexican, has played more American presidents in movies than anybody.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
That is funny. So today you bring forth, before we get to your story, I wanted to mention your new book coming out.
Yes.
You're calling it a memoir. Memoir.
Memoir.
Meaning that, memoir, right, because it's all about this famous queen of film noir named Lizabeth Scott. So not Elizabeth, but just Lizabeth Scott.
Not Lizabeth,
And
Lizabeth.
Lizabeth, right. Oh, right. Lizabeth. And I never knew about this woman before, and I feel like I should have known who she was, but I didn't. But I do know that you always admired her work, and I know that you had lunch with her one day at Musso and Frank's here in Hollywood, and just that one lunch set up like your friendship forever?
For 20 years. And
What?
she pertains to my story because I didn't know who she was either. When I first saw her in a movie called Dead Reckoning, I was doing my junior year abroad in Paris, where they show American movies every day. It's just heaven. And I went to see this Humphrey Bogart film that I didn't know what it was, and it starred Lizabeth Scott, and I saw her, and I was just so mesmerized by her. And I'd never heard of her before, and I thought I knew everything about Hollywood. And I looked her up, and they're like, oh yeah, the second-rate Lauren Bacall. They came out 1 year after each other. Their careers are incredibly similar. They were both discovered, actually, by Diana Vreeland for Harper's Bazaar. And Lauren Bacall was Betty Persky, and she went to Hollywood a year before and became Lauren Bacall and did To Have or Have Not, married Humphrey Bogart. The very next year, Bogart starring with Lizabeth Scott, who was Emma Mazzo, because same thing, she was a model who got discovered by Hal Wallace and came to Hollywood. So they were, contemporaries, but Lizabeth never had that film that endured, so she outlived her fame, which is a concept I'd never even considered till I met her. But there are many Americans who at one point were on the cover of Time magazine, but by the time they were in their 60s, 70s, no one knew who they were, and no one cared.
Yeah. No, this is all very interesting. I have a new podcast coming out September 1st, and it's called My Life in 3 Songs. And this is a passion project. I'm talking to comedians about the 3 songs that have impacted their lives.
Oh, wow.
And I go through my own songs that have impacted my life. And one of my songs is My, Hey, Hey by Neil Young. And that song, Going Into the Blue and Out of the Black, that's what it's about. It's about a fleeting, it's about fame and how fleeting it is. And if it leaves you before you leave it, that can be devastating.
Right?
Yeah, that's fabulous. I never thought of it that way. And how long did Lizabeth live?
So she was a nonagenarian. Once again, when we met Pierre Cardin, 95, I thought, oh, this is going to be the first guy we know to live to be 100. He died at 98. Elizabeth died at 92. Wow. And she was my first experience with dementia in an older person. Oh. So I took it too personally, and I wish I'd been a better son to her, which I could have been, had I understood that, you know, she was forgetting things not on purpose. She got really jealous of Cher when we did the film with Cher. And I said, well, it's not really about Cher, it's about Cher's mother. And she said, but Todd, I didn't even know Cher had a mother. I said, well, most people have mothers, Lizabeth. But then she said, you know, ever since you took up with that singer, you've forgotten about me. And it's like, no, I haven't.
Oh my. Did she have friends?
She had a lot of friends, but, you know, when she died, I was shocked to find out I was the executor of her will, and she didn't tell me that. But she had me removed the year we did the Cher documentary. So she left me a lot of money regardless, but and I'm glad I was not, because I'd have to deal with her family and, you know.
Yeah, I understand. Oh, that would be very... Can you imagine you go to her family and they say, oh, yeah, she gave me all the money. They would be furious.
Well, also, you know, we started having political conflicts towards the end.
Oh, boy.
Because she's old school. She knew Chuck Heston and Ronnie Reagan, and, you know, those were her peeps.
Sure.
So she was very rich and white.
Wow.
But a wonderful person.
And so did she get put in a care home toward the end, or a care facility that could help her? She stayed at her house.
She drove till the end. She lived on her own till the end. And that's why I never was that concerned. I didn't think she was going anywhere. And then she just died one day.
But wait,
no
warning. How couldn't she have a caregiver?
She didn't have. She had an assistant.
Okay.
But, you know, she took care of herself till the very end.
Wow.
Even though her mind was going, and she'd come in and out, you know. So you'd talk to her one day when she's 91, and she's making perfect sense. And she's like, I'm so sorry, I was cranky, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, other days, she's like, you haven't called me for a year. It's like, I called you last week.
That's so hard. Very, very difficult. Yeah. Well, I'm anxious for the book, Lunch with Lizabeth. It's a memoir, like I said, coming out on September 29th. So I'll tell you.
Which is her 100th birthday.
Oh, how exciting. Her 100th birthday. And Todd Hughes, once again, you have dug into a persona, a person, and a life, and you have fleshed it out. So congratulations. I can't wait to hear who you do next, as it were.
Well, I gave you a little hint, but we can't say it on the air.
Okay.
Yet. I told you I had a meeting with the New York.
Well, that's very exciting. How exciting. I'm so happy for you. And we're going to get to your story here in 1 second, because I do want to hear about your first autograph that you didn't get. But before we do, I wanted to remind everybody that My Life in 3 Songs is happening right now. It's exclusively on Spotify because they have that music licensing that I need. So head over to Spotify. You can download the app for free and check out My Life in 3 Songs. I really appreciate it. And of course, follow My Life in 3 Songs on social media at My Life in 3 Songs. And of course, check out the website, mylifein3songs.com. Thank you.
I can't wait.
All right, you guys. Yeah, it is exciting. It's really exciting. All right, you guys, he's here right now. You hear him talking. Todd Hughes, he's a producer and a director, and he is known for House of Cardin, My Name is Lopez, Hit So Hard, the Lifetime documentary Dear Mom Loves Cher, Mansfield 6667, which about the last 2 years of her life. And you've just kept so busy. Do you do any social media? I don't think so.
Yes. No, my Instagram is Airport 1975, which is one of my favorite films.
That is so funny. Find Todd over at Instagram at Airport 1975. Which is so funny. Now, is that...
Which was that great film with Charlton Heston where the pilot, it's a midair collision of a jumbo jet, and Dana Andrews is flying a small plane, and the pilot gets killed, and Karen Black is the stewardess, and she has to fly the plane till they do a midair airlift of Charlton Heston into the plane. Meanwhile, in the back, you've got Myrna Loy, Sid Caesar, Helen Reddy, Linda Blair, like everyone.
The other airport that I liked was Airport 77, because that's the one when they land in the Bermuda Triangle and the plane sinks. Now, that is not the problem. You would think, oh no, the plane ditched in an ocean and that's the problem. That's not the problem. In fact, on the tableau under the ocean, you can see all the lights are on the airplane. The lights are all on, so it's not the underwater problem. The problem is they landed in the Bermuda Triangle. That's where they get you.
God, who was flying the plane in that one? Alain Delon? No, he was flying Airport 79, the Concorde.
Those movies are so funny. Well, how enjoyable to watch those. I'm telling you.
And the original, right, Airport is so great. It was nominated for Best Picture, and Helen Hayes won Best Supporting Actress as the little old lady stowaway. And
what year was that? The
1970.
First one? Wow.
We actually pitched Airport 2000. We tried to get to Jennings Lang because that was Y2K, and we were going to have the world's first computerized superjet that at midnight 2000 can't stop then. The computer shut down and it's speed in the air, right? They have to dismantle the plane while it's flying and evacuate the Spice Girls and everyone else who happens to be flying that night.
And they have to keep the plane going at a certain speed. They have to keep up at 550 miles an hour or the plane's going to fall apart. That's
exactly. I thought it was a good idea.
So funny. Oh my gosh, so many funny premises. All right, so you guys, again, follow Todd over there on Instagram at Airport1975. All right, you guys, wherever you are, put your hands together for the very talented Todd Hughes.
Oh, thank you. So, clearly you can tell I've been starstruck since I was a young child. And, the more I could, back then you didn't have VCRs, you didn't have the computer. One of my first memories is watching a movie on a black and white TV. I'm that old. And years later, I realized it was Veronica Lake in this movie called So Proudly We Hail, where she plays a nurse that's surrounded by the Japs in World War II. And so she puts on her sexy nightgown and slips a grenade in her cleavage and walks out. And when all the enemy pounce on her, she blows up. She's a human bomb. Anyway, that clearly started my whole obsession with these film noir sirens of the 40s with the blonde hair and the smoky voices. So we cut to 1977. It was my first year in high school at Claremont High, and I was united with my friend Tim Kirk, who went to a different junior high, so we'd never actually gone to school together before. So one day we're at school and they're like, oh, they're filming a TV movie down at the old schoolhouse, which became a place called Griswold's. And it was like a hotel and a restaurant and all this stuff. So after school, me, Tim, and this other guy, Bill Gilfrey, went down to Griswold's. And, back then there's no security or anything. And we go to where they're filming and we're like, oh, wow, they had a fake elevator built. And so you could, the doors would open and the camera could move so you could get all the different angles. We're like, wow, this is fascinating, a real movie. And then we look at the actors and one of them is Lauren Bacall. And at that time, we all knew who she was because she did those commercials for High Point decaffeinated coffee. Do you remember this?
Tell me more.
So she was doing this series of commercials for this instant decaffeinated coffee called High Point. And she'd always start out saying something that made no sense, like, my favorite time of day is night. Or, writing is a coffee lover's dream. That page took 4 cups. But it was all about her not needing caffeine. She's active enough, thank you. But, and we all know instant coffee is just awful. But anyway, it was Lauren Bacall, and we knew she had been married to Humphrey Bogart, and we'd seen To Have or Have Not, and we couldn't believe it. And I found out later, there's a guy in the scene playing the bellhop, who's Steve Bluestein, the comedian. So I didn't know that then, but we're watching her film, and she's like, no one's messing with her. The director was Jackie Cooper, who had been in our gang. He was a child star, so it was a real mother lode of Hollywood. in Claremont, California.
Jackie Coogan. Wasn't it
Coogan
Coogan?
was the guy who played on the Addams Family. They were both child stars. I think Jackie Cooper played Skippy and was in The Champ with Wallace Beery. But,
Wow.
I may be wrong. But anyway, so we're watching this thing, and then they go cut, and Lauren Bacall leaves. And we're like, oh my God, this is too good. We've got to get her autograph. So we follow her. And she's going out through the back of the hotel, through the parking lot to her trailer, and she could tell we were following her, and she actually dodged us. She went behind a car. Anyway, she got to her trailer and slammed the door. So me and Tim and Bill Gilfrey sat outside her trailer for an hour going, trying to whistle, right? You know how to whistle, don't you? Just put your lips together and blow. And we're rummaging through our backpacks, and we find a piece of paper, which was actually like a mimeograph test, but one side was blank. We found a pen and Bill's trumpet case. So we're like, win ugly, right? We're going to go up to her with a pen, a piece of paper, and a hard surface. Finally, after an hour, the door opens, and she's like, shoo, and I run up to her, and so polite, and I go, Miss Bacall, may I please have your autograph? And she spins around and just looks at me with this venom and this rage, and she goes, get lost! And I was just like, oh my God, what did I do? I must, and I think Bill was just like, what an asshole. But I was so, not traumatized, but I was like, I don't think mere mortals are supposed to talk to movie gods, right? It just made me feel so like, oh wow, you just don't do that. That's not something, they're different people. And it's so interesting that my career ended up being all about being intimate with famous people. And I got to New York. I went to college in 1981 to New York City, and never saw celebrities. The first time I started seeing Andy Warhol a lot, and I was so in awe of him. And I happened to be at Studio 54 for this private party of an actor I'd never heard of named Eddie Murphy, because we weren't watching TV then, right? We were in college. We didn't watch Saturday Night Live yet. Or we had watched it, but stopped watching it. And there was Andy Warhol, and he was standing with Halston and Victor Hugo. And they had open bars back then, and I was 18 and had just learned to drink. So I was like, blah, 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 blah. And instead of asking for an autograph, I just walked up to him and said, I love pop art. It's so new wave. And I kissed him on the lips. And the three of them jumped back in horror. And I was like, oh, wow, that wasn't cool, was it? And then, this is so weird. 2 weeks later, I'm walking down West Street with my friend Kai, and we bump into David Byrne of the Talking Heads. And I was in such awe of anyone New Wave back then. And he just went, oh, excuse me. And I said, I'm not going to say anything, right? Why embarrass myself? Why go, David Byrne, I love you. And then we were mugged.
Oh, no!
Like 2 seconds later, my friend said, look, there are 3 guys over there. I said, oh, don't be racist. We're at knife point being mugged.
Oh,
but,
no, really?
Yeah, but I think that really, just those experiences made me think, that's stupid. You should never, ever try to meet or talk to celebrities. And then years later, I read a book by John Waters called Role Models, where he said, when people come up to me and tell me I'm a genius or gush too hard, where do you go from there, right? It's impossible, and that has really helped me meet people that are famous, and, like Cher. By the time I met Cher, you're just shaking her hand and looking into her eyes. Next thing you know, you're joking, and you can go there. You can tell her, like, oh my God, I used to watch Sonny and Cher every night, when I was a kid. But so then it's so ironic that Lauren Bacall was the first roadblock to Hollywood. And then I discovered Lizabeth Scott, which I was talking about earlier, became obsessed with her because I didn't know who she was either, and it was before the internet. So I was just spent years trying to figure out who she was and what movies she had been in. And I was in New York City, and this guy came over, and I had her picture on the wall, and he said, oh, it's Lizabeth Scott. I teach her aerobic dance in Hollywood.
Oh my gosh.
Next thing you know, I moved to Hollywood, and I'm using every clue I can get to try to find her, but it's very, very difficult. And then this real estate agent who was selling the building I was living in came over to my apartment one afternoon, and I had a shrine on the wall, like tons of pictures of her. And he said, I can tell you feel the same way about her that I feel about Madonna. And I was like, okay. He said, what do you know about her? I said, I know she lives on Hollywood Boulevard, but I didn't know Hollywood Boulevard continued past Crescent Heights. I thought it was...
Sure.
And I'd walk up and down those apartments like, God, this is not it. I wouldn't imagine like a movie star would live in an apartment. Anyway, he called a title agent who said, nope, no, Lizabeth Scott. I said, no, Lizabeth Scott. No, anyway, when she got it right, she gave me her address. I started walking by her house every day. And then I saw her.
Wait a second. This is a stalking story. Now we're a stalker.
I'm an official, yes, so now I'm a stalker.
Wait, Todd, you moved from New York to Hollywood just to find her?
No, I didn't get into film school. I graduated from Columbia and I applied to AFI, NYU, and USC.
You didn't get in?
I didn't get into any of them. And I said, well, screw them. I'm going to move to Hollywood and make movies anyway. And Lizabeth Scott lives there. You know, it was always in the back of my mind. It wasn't the reason. It's just funny that it was always on my mind. Mm-hmm. And then one day I walked by her house and I saw her. And I went, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. If she saw me or called the police, or I got to cut this out. And luckily, I met a guy and fell in love, and we moved to Silver Lake, so I wasn't so close. I used to live in West Hollywood. And then one day I found myself out of a job, and I just said, you know what? I'm going to send her a letter. I know her address. So I wrote her a really, you know, like, I'm a writer, and I would love to work with you, and blah, blah, blah. She answered the letter. I wrote her back. Then I got a job working at the American Film Institute at Hollywood and Western, Franklin and Western, and just kept charming her, and she invited me to lunch at Musso and Frank. And then when we sat down face to face, and it was that moment where finally whatever Lauren Bacall started ended. And I just went, my God, I'm sitting with a woman who happens to be a great movie star, but just a really nice, funny person. And we just hit it off. And the less I talked about Hollywood, the more she liked me.
Yeah.
But when she did, I mean, this lady kissed Elvis Presley. She was in Elvis's second film. She was in a movie with Robert Mitchum called The Racket. Once again, not a movie we remember, but I loved him so much. And, you know, we're sitting at Musso and Frank's, and I was like, what was it like working with Robert Mitchum? And she's like, oh, Todd. Oh, he'd bring his guitar to my dressing room and serenade me. Damn, he was sexy. Also, I forgot to mention, she was the victim of a confidential smear story in the mid-50s that accused her of being a lesbian and using prostitutes. So by the time I met her, this rumor had been propagated to the point where I thought she was gay. And I was really excited to meet an old lesbian movie star. Oh, luckily I didn't say anything, because she was not a lesbian at all. She was a heterosexual Republican. But, you know, luckily our friendship grew and grew and grew. And now it's so funny. I'm going to get in so much trouble with my book because I'm outing her as straight, and people are going to come down on me and call me a homophobe, and they already have. When I try to set the record straight, people are like, oh, why don't you just let her be who she is? Like, don't try to, you know. It's like, I know, but she's not.
Yeah, you're her friend. You would know after all those years. So let me guess. When you met her, I'm just throwing it out there. You're 35, she's 65.
75.
No. She was 75, and
I was 34.
34, she's 75.
And I smoked at the time. I smoked cigarettes. And she said, Todd, do you smoke? And I said, yes. She said, you've got to quit. I quit last year, and I feel so much better. I was like, well, maybe I'll wait till I'm 75.
That is adorable. That is so cute. But that's true though. They say that even if you smoke for 50 years, if you quit even 6 months, you're going to be better. Like you're healthier, like immediately.
Right. But
I
she
mean, I
told
guess
me to
that's what you're
quit,
saying.
and then we became friends with Kenneth Anger, of all people, and he was really adamant about me stopping smoking, so I eventually did.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad you did. Boy, oh boy, it is fascinating. And when you would go to Musso and Frank's, who picked up the bill?
Always her. The first day we went, she grabbed the check and she said, "Good thing I'm rich. I don't know what I'd do if I had to work for a living." And then she every year she would send me, like, now in retrospect, I was the son she never had. And she thought I was really preppy and never thought I had an edge. But she'd buy me these, like, Ralph Lauren sweaters, and, it was so sweet. And
So kind.
yeah, she was very generous. And it was hard when we got to the political stuff, and we're all going through this now, where you have a friend or you're a relative, and you're like, why can't you see the light?
Yeah.
Is it really that important to you to toe the line so you keep all your money or whatever you think you're doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
But when David and I got married, she said, "All right, but why must you call it a marriage? Marriage is between a man and a woman." And I said, no, Lizabeth. I'm a waiter. I was a waiter. At the end of the night, you marry the ketchup bottles. You marry the wine bottles. Let's look it up in the dictionary. You're in motion. You're in movies. At the end, you marry the picture to the sound. She's like, well, now that you've put it that way, I'm totally for your marriage. Right? So she would, and she loved gay
adorable.
guys. She had a lot of gay male friends.
Yeah.
So
That's so sweet. That's really funny. Yeah, I've looked at her picture. She was, you would say, like a Hollywood siren, I think might have been one of the
oh
words.
yeah. I mean, she looks a lot like Lauren Bacall and Veronica Lake. She had those
Veronica
huge
Lake, that
cheekbones.
Right, and that same blonde hair cascading and that flawless skin.
Well, the other interesting aspect of her is that she was the mistress of Hal Wallace, who produced Casablanca. He put Warner Brothers on the map. And when he won the Oscar for Casablanca, the Warner Brothers said, "You sit down." The Warner Brothers made this picture, and he produced it. And he said, "Well, you can go to hell," and started his own production company. The first person he signed was Lizabeth Scott, who he saw on Broadway. She was Tallulah Bankhead's understudy in The Skin of Our Teeth with Frederick March and Montgomery Clift. They were both kids. Signed her. He next signed Burt Lancaster, Kirk Douglas, Charlton Heston. I mean, uncanny.
Wow.
But
Wild.
they fell in love. So her first film, she was a star billing. Her second film, she's with Barbara Stanwyck in The Strange Love of Martha Ivers, who was a lesbian, interestingly enough. And, and Barbara Stanwyck sued him and said, her name, your girlfriend, can't be above the title. And he said, of course she can. And then, so she had a hard time. Burt Lancaster and Charlton Heston were like, she's the producer's girlfriend. Yeah. And they gave her, but she held her own. And now you watch her movies and she's so unique. She's so different.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Boy, that's super interesting how you get deep into somebody's life. I mean, it's extraordinary.
Well, it's so funny because I feel like at a certain point people stopped being interested in the 20th century, because I meet young people and they don't care. They don't want to know, right? Even like share really interesting things. They're like, yeah, before my time. It's like, yeah, but, when I was growing up, Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers were before my time, but I wanted to know who they were. Frank Sinatra was before my time, but I wanted to know all about him. So what is this thing now where millennials are just not curious? I don't know.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Well, it's tough because I'm a big fan of progress and moving ahead, and I don't always look back myself.
Sure.
I'm always going to the future.
But now you're going to be like, Lizabeth Scott,
Oh, yeah. No, now I
right?
know that name forever. Yeah, for sure. It's so interesting that she got so petty toward the end of her life that she was angry that you were working with Cher.
It's just odd. And
But wait. But is it odd, or was she kind of stuck in an arrested development of when she became famous? Do you know what I mean? Like if she got everything she wanted at 23, 24, whatever, however old she was,
right,
then that would change her trajectory in terms of learning. So
right.
maybe she was just really a 17-year-old girl always.
Also, when I met her, I have a friend named Mary Shear who was on a show called Mad TV. She had just gotten on the show, and I said, my friend Mary just got on this show, and she said, Mad TV, that comes on Fox at 11. She knew all about it. So, and I made a movie with Mary Warnoff. Do you know who she is?
No.
She was in Eating Raoul,
Oh, wow.
Death
Yeah,
Race
sure.
2000.
Wow.
And I asked Lizabeth to be in it. She's like, well, who's the star? And I said, Mary Warnoff. And she's like, but Todd, she hasn't made a picture in years. So she knew who she was.
Yeah.
So, but there is something to what you said, I think, that, yeah, she played by her own rules, right? She lived in her own world, but she was jealous too, I think.
That's what I mean. It's very childish. It's jealous. It's
Right. She didn't like it that I would, yeah. And
You're
also,
cheating on her. Todd, you cheated on her. Just admit it. Just say it.
with Cher,
I've heard extraordinary things about Cher's upbringing that made her kind of like always a star. Like she was born to be a star.
right?
Is that
She
true?
was
Do you think that's
practicing
true?
her autograph when she was 12.
Yeah.
But I hope you watch our film, Dear Mom Loves Cher, because it gives the whole history of Georgia, and her mother was discovered by Bob Wills of the Texas Playboys and said, go to Hollywood. And she did. And she was up for a movie. She had a role in a movie called The Asphalt Jungle, beautiful, of course. And she lost the role to another newcomer named Marilyn Monroe. So, and Cher grew up with Robert Mitchum, because they all like to tote the doobie, that set. And so she was always around Hollywood, right? She's known Lucille Ball since she was a little kid, because Lucy would use Georgia a lot. And Ozzie Nelson had a crush on Georgia. So Cher grew up. Cher told us this awesome story when she was a teenager. She was trying to be cool, and she went into Schwab. She was like 13, 14, to buy cigarettes.
Drugstore. Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
And this guy picked her up. It was Warren Beatty. And he kept her out all night. She's like, oh, I'm going to get in so much trouble. Will you call my mom? And Warren Beatty is still friends with Georgia.
Wow, that is so neat. Tell me again, how exactly can we watch Dear Mom Loves Cher? It's on Lifetime still? Is it on Lifetime?
No, but you can buy it on Amazon or iTunes.
And watch it.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that very much. Dear Mom Loves Cher.
And there are tons of bootlegs out there on YouTube and stuff.
Well, this has been so much fun chatting with you, Todd. I could chat with you all night. I'd like to be in Mexico with you and a big bottle of wine. Not the little bottle, just like the big one. And I would love to sit down and
you and Tim come visit.
Oh, I'm telling you, man, you are so fascinating.
If you go on my Instagram account, right, we're chronicling moving in, so you can see where I live. It's pretty spectacular.
I can't wait. At Airport 1975. That is the funniest handle to me. Airport 75.
Well, it's funny because my email address is airport 75, so you have to be careful because people are like, I can't find you, but it's because I'm 1975 here and 75
You crack me up, man. You are such a talent. And you know what? I forget which one of your elderly friends told you how young you are, but you are young because you're going to live 30 more years. So that's a lot of time.
That was Pierre Cardin.
Yeah, okay, Pierre Cardin. I'm just saying, seriously, though, if you're going to live for 30 more years, that's beautiful.
What can you get done? Everything.
Yeah.
You can start over.
Yeah,
So.
And now you're in such a wonderful place, and I think it's going to even open you up creatively even more.
Also, let me tell you one more thing.
Yeah.
So coming down here, I've stopped taking all my meds, all this bullshit with the American health system and insurance. You come down here, it is no nonsense. No one's on meds. Everyone's healthy. Everyone's happy. There's very low rate of mental illness. It just makes you think.
Yeah.
And I just worked with a physio this morning, and she's like, the diagnosis I got from all these doctors, she's like, I can't say it's not that, but it's not. And already, like, getting my tennis arm back in shape.
Wow,
so
that's great. Are you near water? I mean, I can't picture this geography where you live right now.
Oh, so we're 20 miles from the coast.
Mm-hmm. Which coast?
But it's the Gulf of Mexico.
Okay.
So we're down by Belize, by Honduras, by Cuba. So, the Yucatan Peninsula juts out. And so we're a 2-hour flight from Houston or Miami.
That's not far at all.
No. And it's tropical weather.
Yeah.
So every day around 3, 4 o'clock, it's hot. And then 3, 4 o'clock, the clouds roll in, thunder and lightning. Oh, it just rain. And then it's gone.
And then it's gone.
It's
That's
so amazing.
so interesting. I have a friend who's working in the Canary Islands, and I think that's on the same latitude. The Canary Islands, they're south of Spain, right?
I'll look that up.
South of Spain. And I bet you that's just where you are, because she tells me that it rains every single day.
Yeah. And, which means it's very lush.
Yeah.
And, the trees around here are 200-300 years old. Also, we went to those cenotes, because the asteroid hit here, so all the water that covered the earth went down into these holes. So it's like the Pirates of the Caribbean, these huge caverns. And you're just swimming through them. And like, our water from the city is very minimal, so they're punching a well in. So they're just going to go down and get a well that will fill up our pool and water our plants and do all that kind of water.
Wow. Dude, I've got to tell you, the only mistake you're making is whoever's listening to this show might just move to your area.
Well, I must say,
really,
so far,
it sounds like paradise.
A lot of interesting artists. A friend of ours who got us really interested, his name is Trey Spiegel. He's a visual artist, but, just it's really nice being amongst, first of all, you can't put your foot in your mouth politically, which is such a relief. Because in Palm Springs, people were, oh my God,
we've
we've
been
been
back and forth.
Well, you've been friends with people for years, and then you see they voted for Trump, and you're like, you've got to be kidding.
Yeah.
You hang out with gay people, you think women should be in power, you say you're not racist, and then you vote for him. What is that? What is that about?
I can't, I have no concept. And I know that we're supposed to reach across the aisle and all that, but I'm not really interested in reaching across the aisle. I think I'll just stay here in LA with my friends and just keep it right about here. Like I've told somebody the other day recently that, I was a flight attendant for years.
Oh, really?
And I've flown not all over the world, but a lot of places around the world. And I've been in pretty much every state, and I don't want to go to 48 of them ever again. I really don't. I like California. I like Hawaii. Those are my jams.
The last 2 years, we took cross-country tours because my husband wrote a book called 99 Miles from LA, which came out last year. So we drove around the country doing a book tour, and I'm glad I saw it. Because it's a beautiful country we live in.
Right.
But I could not believe some of the things we saw. And, I mean, we're gay. I don't think we're that flamboyant, but you felt the hate. We were at some Subway, right, sandwich shop out in Podunk something, and we were at Kentucknob, a Frank Lloyd Wright house, right, architecture tour. I'm wearing gold tennis shoes. And this guy comes up and he goes, dude, really? I'm like, we're here for beauty. Don't pick a fight with me.
Yeah. Did you say that?
No, I just moved away quietly, meekly. I took my wedding ring off and put it in my pocket. You know why?
No, you didn't.
Because I don't want to fight.
Did you really do that?
Yeah, both of us did.
That makes me so sad.
I know it made us sad too, but like you said, I'm glad I've been there. I'm not going back.
Yeah, I'm telling you, there is so much hate, there's so much division, and there's so much ignorance. It's like there's a large portion of the United States that does not want to move forward, and they're not going to.
Also, the racial slips I've heard. And I'm like, you're so privileged to grow up in Southern California because you really grow up with one of the most diverse communities, because you go elsewhere and they've never even seen a black person or a homosexual.
I am so happy to bring my child up in this environment, and they're non-binary, and I can't imagine having to go through the racism that other people and the hatred that other people feel. I can't even imagine it. That makes me so sad.
Great documentary called "Can't We All Just Get Along" by Pablo Morales.
Mm-hmm. It makes you really, really emotional. I can tell.
Yeah, but it's about growing up in Pasadena, where all the Hollywood, like the Chinese who came to do the gardening.
Sure.
And the black people who were the servants. Anyway, it's where all the middle class kind of ethnic melting pot happened, and it's amazing when you look at this, and it's like the Rainbow High School, right? You've got everyone there, and everyone's getting along famously. And that's all it takes, right? Just putting people together, because everyone's the same.
I've always been told that Pasadena was created and brought up by Midwestern people from the Midwest and people from the East Coast, and that's why you won't find that many palm trees in Pasadena, because they kept it like the deciduous trees from the East Coast. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah. No, I have not, but I've learned a couple new things today.
I am so happy to meet you, Todd. Tim
Likewise.
Kirk was right on when he told me that I would so enjoy talking with you.
Yes, he was, and that I would enjoy talking with you.
Thank you so much, Todd.
And I love your voice.
You are, thank you. You are such a talent. And remember, you guys, Todd's new book, Lunch with Lizabeth, a memoir, is coming out September 29th, so look for that. All right, you guys, don't forget to follow Todd over on Instagram at Airport1975, and then you can find me there as well at Storyworthy and at My Life in 3 Songs. All right, you guys, one more time on behalf of the very talented Todd Hughes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Christine.
My name is Christine Blackburn, saying, make it a story-worthy week.
Thanks for joining us on the Storyworthy podcast. We'll be back next week with all new stories. Subscribe to Storyworthy on iTunes and visit the Storyworthy website at storyworthypodcast.com.